Hey guys, what's going on? It says Dr. Matt Winning at winningstrength.com. And today what I wanted to talk to you guys about was the maximal effort method. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the maximal effort method, I highly suggest that you get on Patreon and look at the library located on the top tier where I post all my books and my notes. And there's about 2.5 years of books posted there with enough reading in there to blow a normal person's mind. But without going in too much into that, I want to give a quick recap of what the maximal effort method is, what its limitations may be, and how you can possibly better utilize it no matter what your goals are. So let's do a little history. The first thing that we have to understand is that the Eastern Bloc countries were so far ahead of the United States by the 60s, 70s, and 80s that it wasn't even funny with weightlifting. The first book to actually come out in the masses and tell people what the Russians were doing was Vladimir Zatsiorsky's book in 1994, Science and Practice of Strength Training. It's the greenback book that I feel that all strength coaches should have. Now, there's been 2 or 3 redos of this book, all of which are very good, but I feel that the first initial book done by Vladimir Zatsiorsky himself was actually probably the best book that I've seen. Now, the most recent one that I think was done around 2020, 2021, kind of goes back to some of the original data that was utilized in the Soviet system. But before about 1994, nobody in the West had really talked anything about utilizing a maximal effort method for training. We were stuck in the linear periodization, 10-8-6-4 block type stuff where you would train certain reps for a week or 2, maybe 3. Then you'd go up and weight less reps, up and weight less reps. And nobody ever thought to go as heavy as you technically could on a very consistent basis. In 1994, this book comes out, and underground-wise, the whole lifting community goes wild. The first person to actually read this and utilize it in my own mind was Louie Simmons. Now, for those of you that don't know, Louie Simmons ran Westside Barbell in Columbus, Ohio, and was the reason that I moved from Indiana to Columbus to train. He started talking a lot about these different Russian books and started talking a lot about Zatsiorsky, which will stay to keep this video short and sweet. And then as I got the book and started to read it, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't think about training in any way, shape, or form like this. But if we look at the maximal effort method and we really dial it in, what are its benefits? Because a lot of people will go, why would you need to go heavy all the time? That just seems counterproductive and overtraining. Well, if you're underprepared, that's absolutely true. But the maximal effort method is designed to increase internal and external motor unit coordination. This means that you can not only balance external factors such as barbells, dumbbells, kettlebells, and other implements or other people if we're talking about football or contact sports, but it also means that we can balance the muscles both on the front and the back side, right? So we have anterior and posterior, we have left and right. All of those things are enhanced and improved upon in coordination when utilizing the maximal effort method. It is also the best way to build strength. So if we're looking at maximal strength, then the maximal effort method kind of holds supreme as the best way to develop that. But it also has some downsides. The downsides are it's easily overtrained and it's highly neurologically taxing. So for a lot of people, the maximal effort method doesn't seem to be able to be utilized very well for one major reason. The major reason is that most people don't vary their exercises enough. So if we start digging deeper and deeper into the Soviet system, and we'll get to more of that in my book when it hopefully comes out at some point, you'll start to see that the way they worked around utilizing the maximal effort method on a consistent basis was to change the exercise, or what we call the mode. Now, changing the mode does a couple of things. One, it allows the body to be put in different pressure points at different times. 2, it keeps the central nervous system fresh by giving it a new task. If you look at a lot of different books, what you'll find is that the maximal effort method, or training in general, causes high burnout rates under extreme loads because of lack of variety. This is why the conjugate system was developed around the early 70s and was mastered by the mid 80s to late 90s before the communist system fell apart. The rotational system allows more maximal training at higher volumes and higher intensities. So what we have to realize is that the maximal effort method is a very educational way to train. You can't just go in and bench press with a straight bar every week. You can't just go in and squat with a straight bar every week. You have to do exercises that are very similar in that motor pattern, similar enough for transfer, but different enough in order for the body to not overtrain and overreach and probably create injury. So to use it properly, we need to utilize the maximal effort method every 144 hours or about 4 times a month. This allows the body to not only progress in maximal strength, but also in the things that we talked about with internal and external motor unit coordination. What we find in many sports is that maximal strength is usually the limiting factor. It's an interesting scenario because you ask, why is that? It's usually because it's been ignored. So if we look at pro football, which I do a lot of work with pro football teams, we look at pro baseball. Starting to do some more work and actually head into the San Diego Padres here in about 2 weeks. I've done a lot of work with pro football teams like the Jaguars and the Chicago Bears and the San Francisco 49ers and the Cleveland Browns. But before we go into all of that at a different time, my point being is that most of those athletes that have come through that ranks, I'm not saying that they didn't have strength conditioning, but usually they have way more skill training and sport training than they actually have general training. And so what we've missed in the West is a generalized block of a base of a pyramid before we peak to the top. And a big chunk of that base missing is maximal strength. Now, conjugate system is very, very good about making sure that you're utilizing different exercises. So people go, well, Matt, I don't understand what a maximal effort back squat has to do with baseball. I don't understand what a maximal effort back squat has to do with football. In an indirect way, it has a lot to do with it because a lot of times different contraction speeds are based upon how much you can lift maximally. And so that's why the force velocity curve might be something else that you may need to dig into and research. And we'll do videos on that sometime in the future. But using it properly means we need it once a week. We probably need varied exercises to do so. Now, this has taken my entire life to understand how to utilize this properly, which led me to world records and obviously very low to no injury rates. But I feel like if you need to understand this to 100%, you're probably better off finding a mentor, meaning that we have online coaches at winningstrength.com. And at the bare minimum, we have manuals that lay this out at least so you can get an idea of what your weekly, monthly, and mesocycles should look like when utilizing the maximal effort method. So I hope this video helps you a little bit, gives you a little history, and starts to open your mind to, are you doing maximal effort training, and why are you stuck or plateauing at where you're at now? The answer just might be right here. So talk to you guys soon. Please visit winningstrength.com. Make some comments below, like, subscribe. Try to get this video out as much as you can. Thanks.